starting an exciting new collaboration with Aaron from the 6061 YouTube channel, which I followed for years. Aaron is one of the world's most amazing welders, and his channel is filled with brilliant examples of his welding, plus tons of clever fabrication techniques, all done with his one-of-a-kind sense of humor. Working together, we're building the F-bomb. So many negative words start with the letter F. Failure, frustration, futility, and of course the fearsome F word itself. Our plan is to make a device to symbolically put this negativity to rest. Let me be perfectly clear. This bomb has nothing to do with hurting people. We're just having some fun with a term that most people are familiar with. I'm going to make the fuselage, and Aaron will make the tail to give it proper control. And he will orchestrate the final laying to rest of these negative notions. I'm going to start by doing a full-size layout of the bomb. I've decided to make it 24 inches long and 12 inches in diameter. I'm going to base the front part of this on an ellipse. So I'm going to draw an ellipse that's 12 inches on the short dimension and 20 inches on the long dimension. So I've run the numbers on this to find that the foci that define the ellipse are spaced 8 inches from the center line. So I put 2 push pins in my drawing, and each one is spaced 8 inches from the center. I put a third push pin spaced 6 inches from the center, so this is half of the 12-inch diameter. So I'm going to make a loop of string that goes around these 3 points and tie a knot in it. I'll cut the ends off. Okay, now I can remove this pin, and this string will allow me to draw the ellipse. So I'm going to start on the back corner. So we're off to a good start. I'm going to put a flat bottom on the bomb that's 4 3/4 inches in diameter. So I'll lay out a line for that. And I'll measure 2 3/8 from the center line on both sides. And then I'll draw a line from these points that's tangent to our ellipse. So here's the all-over layout for our bomb. I'll use some whiteout to cover up the parts of this we don't want, and then I'll continue. I'm going to make a wooden buck from the drawing, and I want to put stations on the buck exactly where the junctions are between panels. In the front, I want to divide this highly curved area into manageable pieces. So I'm going to find where a 45-degree angle touches the leading edge of this. Looks like it touches right here. And then I'll use a square to draw a line across my pattern. So there'll be a station on my buck right here. So this small cap will be one piece of metal. And the metal behind this, I think I'll break up into 3 separate pieces. Then looking at the rear part, I want to have a station right where this straight part ends. So I'm going to say the straight part ends right about there. And I'll construct a straight line across the drawing. So I'm going to roll a cone from 1 or 2 pieces of metal to construct the rear portion. And the metal between these 2 stations requires a compound curve. So now that I've defined the diameters I need for the stations, I can start making wooden discs on my sanding fixture. I'm going to make the buck out of 1/2 inch thick plywood, and because several of the stations have a taper, I need to know what the diameter is on the largest side. So I have a strip of metal here that's a 1/2 inch wide. I'm going to use this to lay out both edges of the stations. And now I can measure the diameters on the largest size. Starting at the front, this diameter is 7 5/8. I know the center is 12 inches, and that does not need a taper. Looking at this station, the widest side is 10 3/4, and the bottom station is 5 1/8. I also need to measure the edge angle of all of these stations. And this front station, of course, is 45 because we positioned it so it would have a 45-degree angle. But I'll make a note of that. So this station is 70 degrees, and of course the angle of this station will be the same. So based on this information, now I can make the discs. I'll lay out the first disc, which is 12 inches in diameter. I have a compass set up to that diameter, so I'll draw a circle on this board and then trim it out with a jigsaw. So I'll lay out and cut the rest of the discs in the same way. So now I'll use this fixture to true up one of the 12-inch discs. I'll get the disc positioned at the sweet spot on the fixture. Drive the screw. I'll put my safety gear on and make the disc round. About an 1/8 inch to go. And we're right on the money. I'll get set up for one of the discs with an angled edge now. So this one is 10 3/4 inches in diameter, and the edge is at a 15-degree angle. So I'm going to rotate this box back to 15 degrees. I'll use a protractor to measure that. Lock it in place. Then I'll get the disc positioned. Now I'll put my safety gear on and we'll start sanding. I'm ready to do the disc with a 45-degree angle edge now. So I'll start by rocking the box back to 45 degrees. Lock it into place. I'm going to do something a little different here. I've decided to make a second disc out of 1/4-inch thick material, and you'll see how I'll use this pretty soon. So I have a center screw that goes through both discs. We'll sand them both at the same time. I'm going to put a second screw in here so when I turn the top disc, the lower disc will turn at the same time. Okay, I'll put my safety gear on and we'll sand these discs together. I placed all the round stations on a steel rod to hold them in the proper position. And now I'm going to start thinking about the stations that go from the front to the back. Basically, there'll be a series of stations that fit in these open areas, and the first step is to determine how many stations I need. The most common technique is to use 4 stations that fit together at right angles. And while that would certainly work, I think I'm going to take a different approach to this. I think instead of 4 stations, I'll use 3. And one advantage is there are fewer parts to make. Another advantage is the small hole left in the center is just the right size to fit over a 1/4-inch diameter round bar. So we'll move ahead using this strategy. I'll start the layout for the stations on the nose of the buck. I have a protractor set to 120 degrees. I'm going to put this in place so it's centered on the hole, and then draw a line that goes up from that center hole and a line that goes over at 120 degrees. Then I'll mark another line at 120 degrees going in the other direction. So these are the center lines for the station. And because the material for the stations is a 1/2 inch wide, I need to make lines a 1/4 inch away from these lines. So I'll use a piece of 1/4 inch stock as a spacer and draw some more lines, which are now spaced a 1/2 inch apart. So these are the lines our stations will fit against. I also want to put holes in the round stations so we can look through those holes to see how the metal is fitting the rest of the buck. So I have a template here for the largest hole that I think will fit well in these areas. I'll center this by eye and then trace around the edge. I'm going to cut these holes before we put the stations into place. I have the two front stations clamped together, and I'll make holes through both pieces at the same time. I'll take the slug out and continue drilling. Okay, I'll finish this hole up from the back side, so let's move on to the next hole now. And I'll finish this from the back side. So far so good. So I have the holes placed through the first and second stations. I had a full-size copy made of my drawing, and I glued that copy onto some chipboard, and then I cut the chipboard on the major lines. So now I have some excellent templates, and these will help a lot as I make the buck. I have a block of wood cut slightly oversized, and we'll fit this into place. Then I'll get our template and hold that into place as well. And then I'll use a marker to mark the line for trimming. So there's our cut line. This is a great opportunity to use my new sander to trim this down to size. And now I can use this piece as a template to make the two other pieces. So now I can glue the stations into place. Now I'll be using hot glue. Hot glue is not the strongest glue around. I like it because it's quick setting and it's strong enough for this application. You certainly can use a stronger glue if you want, but I commonly do use hot glue for making bucks. So I just put a little stripe of glue on the bottom of the station, hold it carefully into place. It'll set in just seconds. And I like to put a little glue in the fillet here. That makes it a little bit stronger. So this part of the buck is completed. Let's move on to station number 3. I've laid out the location of the front to back stations, and I placed large holes in the areas between the stations. I'm going to use 1/4 inch threaded rod to hold all these components together, so I want to put a 1/4 inch threaded hole in this station. So I'm going to use a T-nut, and I need to put a recess in this station so the fastener fits flush. So I'll use a 3/4 inch spade bit, and just go deep enough so this will fit flush. And I think we're right there. So I'll use a hammer to put the T-nut into place. So this is all set to go. I have the blanks cut for the next stations, so let's start getting those fitted into place. I'll put a threaded rod into this T-nut, and then I'll put a couple of the stations into place, touching that threaded rod and touching the lines on our middle station. Then we'll lift this station into place. Then I'll put the front stations into place. Now I'm using a knob on this threaded knob to generate a little pressure to hold everything together. So I'm going to start lining up the station closest to me on the lines on the base. And then I'll get that aligned on the top station. Then I'll just tap these other stations into place. I want good alignment on the bottom and good alignment on the top. And the same with this station. Then I'll tap everything against the center. Now I can snug this up pretty well. And now it's time to mark the curved lines where these will be cut. So I'll use a Sharpie marker for that. And I'll use this template we made earlier. So now I can disassemble this. And now I can trim these to size and put the holes in them. I'll use a jigsaw to do the rough trimming. Then I can use my disc sander for the final cleanup. That sure does a nice job. I have the contours finished and all the stations, and before I glue them into place I want to put the largest hole I can right in the center. So I have a little template here for my 4-inch hole saw, and I'll just visually center it both top to bottom and right to left. I think that looks pretty good right there. So now I'll make the holes in all 3 pieces. So now I can glue the stations into place. I'm going to start with the glue on the bottom seam first. Get that all positioned. Then I'll put the front station into place and get this all snugged up. And I'll give this a minute so the glue can harden on the bottom joints before I glue the tops. So for the last step, I'll put a little glue on each of these joints to strengthen them. So all of the joints have been reinforced, and as soon as the glue hardens, we can move on to the next part. I'm going to start the work on the rear portion of the buck now. So I have the station prepared for the front end of the rear portion. I'm going to get this threaded into place on a stud. So you can see this matches the first part perfectly. And I want to lay out the location of the stations on this new piece of wood. So I've cut a piece of 1/2-inch plywood so that it has a notch on the end, and the notch will center itself on this stud. And then I've made tiny little marks on the front end of this in line with the station on the front part. I'm going to put lines on both sides of this that will show me the precise location for the new stations. And I'll put the next station into place. And again, I want to make marks on this that show the precise location where the stations will go. I'm going to make marks that show where the stations are on the lower buck. Then I'll put a stud into place in the center hole, align my V-block with that, and now I can mark the location of the stations on this portion of the buck. So I'll cut a notch in this location that goes halfway, and then I'll cut a matching notch that goes in this station that goes halfway in the other direction, and they'll fit together perfectly. Using the full-size template I made, I've cut out the blanks for the next 3 stations, and I've used the same template to locate the notch, and I've indicated how deep the notch needs to go. So I'm going to cut these notches with a jigsaw. So let's test fit all the pieces together. I've numbered each one of the stations so I know where they go. So we'll put this station into place, slip it down over this piece of threaded rod. Then we'll put the next station into place. And the last one. And I'll put this station into place, which should help hold everything together. So I think I can go ahead and mark the contours to be trimmed on the edges of these. So I'll use my template again. I'll hold this into place with some small spring clamps. Then I'll use a marker to show the cut line. Move to the next location and do the same thing. So now I can trim all these stations. So once again, I can use my disc sander to do the final tune-up on these. And now I want to do the hole layout on these parts. So I position the holes in the round station, and I've started the layout of the holes in this section. Just one more to go. And the idea here is I want to just kind of center it on all 4 sides. So I'll just do that visually. That looks pretty good right there. So now I can mark the perimeter of these holes with a pen. So I'll use hole saws to make these holes, and then we can assemble the buck. I put a threaded rod through the top part of the buck, so there's a few threads exposed sticking through. I'll engage those threads with the threads on the bottom part of the buck, screw them together. Then I'll install the top part of the buck and hold it together with the knob. So the buck is complete. So that brings this video to a close, and next time I'll start shaping the sheet metal to fit the buck. If you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when I post a new project. If you like, you can support these videos through Patreon. Just click the link at the end of the video. I'll see you next time.